All right, we are live. Hello, viewers. Welcome to the program Meet the Press with me, Lovejoy and on the program we talk issues revolving and that are happening around the country. And on the program we invite a lot of people from different sectors. Today, I have invited two enterprising youthful farmers who are doing exceptionally well in that regard. I have John Muchenje, who is an award-winning farmer. He's the reigning Young Champion Farmer of the Year for 2019. And I've got an agripreneur, Nomaliso Musasiwa, who is doing wonders with her business. I'll let them talk about it in a bit. Guys, welcome to the program. And feel free, this is a no-holds-barred conversation. We can talk, we can conversate on anything and everything. Feel free to talk to me, okay? I'll start with you, Nomaliso. Please, just in brief, just give us a brief introduction about yourself and the kind of business that you're doing right now.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching the show. Hi, Lovejoy. Thank you for having me. And hello, John. So my name is Nomaliso Musasiwa, as alluded to. I'm the managing director of Fresh in a Box and the Fresh Farm. We are an e-commerce site that specializes in fresh fruit and vegetable deliveries. However, we have since scaled up to also deliver fresh dairy, meat, and groceries to people's homes. We farm so that we can have control and monitor our supply chains. We do have about 1,900 small scale farmers who also supply our system as well as supply our other bigger customers. But however, we also farm to just ensure that our supply chain is not disrupted by anything else. So we do farm on a 10-hectare plot, and we try and implement intensive type of farming, and we use mostly biosynthetic chemicals and organic manure to grow our food.
All right, that's interesting. Thank you so much, Nomalisa. And I'll come to you, John, just in brief, in 1 minute. Please just let us know what you're doing, what you've been doing.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lovejoy. Thank you, Monalisa. And also, thank you, viewers. Like Lovejoy said, my name is John Muchenje. I'm a young champion farmer based in Midlands. I'm also the reigning champion farmer for the season 2018-2019. And I'm also the Apex chairperson for youth in agriculture in Zimbabwe. Apex Council is an organization which is an umbrella body for all the associations for young farmers in Zimbabwe. And I'm also the founding director of an organization called 4H Zimbabwe, an organization which is into nurturing young children, young people in agriculture. In terms of doing agriculture, I'm doing maize, tobacco, and also into horticulture. And this year, I'm expanding my portfolios into other provinces, working in Marsh East and Marsh West, listing other farms to make sure that we work around issues of to do with food security in the country. So my target is around doing about 500,000 hectares of maize this season.
All right, fine. Nice. Thank you so much. You guys are doing exceptionally well, and this is highly commendable. There's the notion that the future of African youth lie in agriculture. But we have seen, I think, in the Zimbabwean context, because we're going to be talking about Zimbabwe, and probably here and there we'll touch on Africa. But the Zimbabwean context is that there's a lot of drawback in as far as youth coming to agriculture is concerned. I'll start with you, Nomaliso. How did you and why did you decide to come into or to venture into agriculture? Because I know you from our previous lives. You were into something else, and now you're doing agriculture. Why did you decide to do agriculture?
Okay, yeah. So I was a political activist before, and when we started the Fresh in a Box business, it was because of a time when I was unemployed and my husband had lost his last contract as a consultant. And then we decided that we're going to do something to make sure that our family does not starve. And we started saying, we want to have the biggest fruit and veg market without having to have its biggest infrastructure, and that which we did. And we started by using young farmers, and this was triggered by the fact that we were already doing a tomato project in a greenhouse that we were leasing, right? And when the tomatoes were now ready, trying to get a market for it was very difficult. You'd either go to Mbare and you'd have Makoronyera do what they do best, or you go to supermarkets and then they would give you a ridiculous price that would likely not make you even be able to replant. It's a different case when you are a big commercial farmer. You depend on volumes, but when you're a small scale farmer, you try and depend on the premium of the premium on the price of the product. So after that, we then decided, okay, how do we move our tomatoes to people like us? And we then discovered that there were a lot of other small-scale farmers who were doing lettuce, who were doing cauliflower, and they're trying to get their product out there, and they're not getting their money's worth. And that's how Fresh in a Box was birthed. But to move into agriculture in itself, the more we started doing farm to fork through Fresh in a Box, we started to realize that our farmers were more concerned about and if people like John were seen on TV doing cabbages, and they were like, oh, I just hit a good 50,000 with cabbages. Cabbage. And now the market is flooded with cabbages and no one else has got. So our veggie box has got 16 different types of vegetables. Then you would start to struggle with trying to find other varieties of vegetables because farmers have all leaned into one type of product. That's what moved us into doing agriculture. We then found a farm that we leased and we started farming there. We mostly farmed because we wanted to just control our supply chain.
And this whole idea was born out of you guys being unemployed.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. I will pose the same question to you, John, and then we can get into our real issue, because the real issue right now is on the opportunities that are there for the youth in the agriculture sector. But John, maybe for inspiration purposes, just let us know how you got into agriculture. What drove you to venture into agriculture at a time when most youth, like Nomaliso was saying, that there's unemployment. Most youth are unemployed, but you are doing well. You are actually an award-winning farmer.
Thanks very much, Lovejoy. Before I used to do farming, but at a small scale. So what I can call the life-changing time happens when I visited the farm of our current president. By then he was the VP in 2016. So I went there. I went there on another mission. We were discussing something. So I saw piles and piles of maize. So he was saying, he was expecting something like over 1,000 tons of maize. So he challenged me, so you young men, why can't you venture into full-time farming? I've seen that you have a lot of interest in agriculture. Just venture, because I've seen that there's a lot of money in agriculture and also feeding our nation. So I think the visit that I did to my president's farm motivated me, and also his words challenged me to venture into full-time agriculture, looking at the opportunities, which is then business and also our national issues around food security.
All right. I remember there's an article of you where you're quoted in the Zimbabwe, the newszimbabwe.com, where you're saying that President Emerson Mnangagwa is the inspiration, and this is you today also reiterating the same thing, right? Right. Now let's go into the real issue that we are here for. The land acquisition and accessibility for agriculture investment for the youth in Zimbabwe. Do we have equal opportunities in as far as the land acquisition is concerned? Probably, I'm not saying this is it, but you, John, probably you went there through the president. I'm not saying this is what happened, it's just an example. Noma, you could have gone there through other means, right? The question is, do we have equal opportunities for the youth in as far as land acquisition is concerned? Noma, I'll start with you.
I think the equal opportunity lies in the fact that there is some program for people to get land. It becomes unequal in the sense that the system in itself is not effective. I think we've had conversations even with Deputy Minister Harry Tortis about why so for instance, I'm leasing land from a private owner, but then I've been on the list for Goromonzi South for I think about 2.5 years now, waiting just to get a piece of land, a land that I'm willing to lease from the government for at least 99 years, as said. And I'm not looking for vast amounts of land. I'm looking for enough land for me to start up, right? So it's unequal in the fact that there is no efficacy in that distribution, right? And unfortunately, the politics then comes into play, that there are people who can knock some doors that you can't knock, and then that opportunity is availed to them. But then that's the way of life everywhere. If your network is wider and more cast and is powerful, you tend to get access to a lot of those things. So you can't really cry foul. But then the system in itself, regardless of your political affiliation or your network, is inefficient. We can't run away from it. There's so many people who are still in the waiting list. There's so many people who are still waiting for the land audit and its results. Some say it's out, some say it's not out. And sometimes it's the youth not being able to tap into organizations that are structured for agricultural conversations, like farmers unions. So if you're not there, the information is trickled down through those organizations. And if you're unable, or if you're not in that access, it means that you are not equally footed to get access to that information for you to make an equitable decision. And if you don't watch ZBC because you choose to watch other things, you're also not equally footed to get that information. You know, it's those things where the information is there, but then it's how are you equally footed if it's not equally distributed? I think that's the challenge that's there. So when you talk about equality, the information is there, but then it's not the information that you get easily. Like, you don't just bump into it on social media. You bump into Madam Boss on social media, but you don't bump into agriculture. It's over the last, I think, 12 months that we've seen a more encouragement even on Twitter to just see more farmers speaking about agriculture. And I think if we continue in this trajectory, we may be able to equalize the landscape in terms of information. And then the more we know, the more we also participate to make the equal opportunities become equal. But then right now, we're not equally distributed.
All right, interesting. The issue that you bring here is access to information and access to probably the documentation itself as well, which is very important. I think as youth, too often we are channeling our energy towards the wrong things, if I can call it that. And like you're saying, maybe it's because we are spending so much time watching a lot of social trends rather than economic and developmental trends, if I'm getting you right. I'll come to you, John, as well, and I'll ask the same question. What are the opportunities from your point of view? Are there equal opportunities for the youth in agriculture?
Thanks very much. I like what my sister said, and also what you've said, that most of us young people, we are spending our efforts and our time on things that that are non-developmental. For example, if you see, I'm not attacking them, but if you check, if you post something about agriculture, you can get 5 or 100 likes. But if Madam Boss or Twaba post, you can get 10,000 or 1 million followers and it. So the issue is, we as young people, we are spending our time and our efforts on wrong issues. I've got one of my friends, I won't say the name. He said currently he had planted over 1,000 hectares of maize as we speak. He's a young person that has done that. So if we have got such young people with that mentality, you know, I like what my sister said, that the issue to do with land, it's not about ownership, but it's about producing on the land. Because the land belongs to the state. Whether you get an offer letter now or a lease, you are leasing from the state, and the offer letter is from the state. But my encouragement to young people is, guys, let's put joint ventures. Let's partner with the ministry and with the farmers that have land, so that at least we produce for our nation. If, for example, again, we had a few days with the minister, I think 2-3 weeks ago, when I openly said, our honorable minister, Dr. Masuka, as young people, we are not happy with the processes that are happening within your ministry. You are taking ages to release land to young people. So I said, if you delay, we are going to do jambanja. You know, it annoys. So
that's not the way to go.
He said that Then he said, no, order. So he gave us the plan for the ministry in terms of the land acquisition. He said they are going to, the government gave farm sizes per each and every province. So they were saying, firstly, they are going to look at the farms that are not being utilized in the idle or the multiple farm owners. But he challenged us in one way. He said, kindly go and identify such farms and bring them direct to his office for the attention. Because the problem is sometimes we identify a farm and then you tell a provincial head, because there's a lot of corruption that I also witnessed and reported to the ministry about corruption that is happening. There's a lot of farms that are being advertised on newspaper, on social media, Facebook, about the people selling farms. But these are state lands and nothing's happening. So we said, he said, if you identify an idle farm, kindly bring that to his office, just flag it out so that there's no corruption that will be experienced in the process of acquiring that farm. So in terms of equality, the land is not uniform. It's only uniform for the young people who are active and who are eager to work in agriculture. The opportunities are there, but let's find them and let's grab them as young people.
Okay, interesting. But one thing that I would urge you, John, is please do not engage in violence to take those farms back. Don't want another.
That's correct. Yeah.
Again, as you were saying, I think the VP Mohaji in 2019, he said that youth who did not benefit from the land reform should have their special arrangements in terms of farms set aside for them, so that at least they can have somewhere to do their business. What's your take on that, John?
Sorry, what?
I'm saying Vice President Kembo Mohaji once said that the youth who do not benefit from land reform should have land set aside for themselves, so that at least they can get that land, be it on a lease basis or even if they're buying, so that at least they can have something going on those parts. And I'm saying, what's your take on that? Should we have that arrangement, or maybe land should just be available to anyone who's free to have it, since we're all Zimbabweans?
Yeah, I support what the VP said about a special arrangement for the young people. You know, when land reform happened in 2000, most of us were in the secondary school, some in the primary, so we didn't benefit in the process. But we don't want to hide with the nation. We are the youth, because in each and every generation, and the challenge is the moment we make that special clause everywhere, we are going to have these land issues each and every year. Because by the time let's say, for example, I'm 35, next year I'm no longer a youth. There are some people who will be youth that time. Give us this space, give us this space. So I'm saying the land should be acquired based on the capacity and the production level, but a special priority should be given to young people which are active and already in farming.
All right, Noma, one of the things that are always problematic for youth is regards financial resources for young people to undertake agricultural activities. How do you access, let's say, loans? Now looking at the economy as well, where do they get the financial resources? Maybe you can share with us your experiences as well, because this is supposed to be something that is going to help someone out there. Because if an aspiring farmer could be watching right now.
Oh, okay. So first things first is that we need to actually accept the situation of our economy, right? And when opportunities are availed in terms of financial assistance, half the time they're availed for more commercial farmers, because we're trying to deal with food security as the number one issue, right? So people who are small scale farmers like myself who do horticultural produce, you would find that a CBZ fund, then I become unable to access that fund because of the activity that I do, one, the scale that I produce on, two, and how does it feed back into the ideal nature of a program that has been structured, right? So because I fail to get onto that specific program, I then say these opportunities are not enough, or these opportunities are only for a select few like John and not me. But then the truth of the matter is that we haven't invested time to also give information as small scale farmers to say, in an economy where our land is not bankable, number one. So I'm leasing land. What is it that I have to offer a bank for them to extend a loan facility for agricultural purposes, for people who are in small scale farming or horticultural farming, right? And the other lane for that is now engaging in export farming, which alone by itself, if you got a loan, you'd spend that money on trying to get licenses for GAP and so forth. So it's a tricky, slippery slope on how to find that money. And over time, how we have financed our farming, for instance, was through customers that that are buying from Fresh in a Box. However, I strongly believe that we now need to also learn that not everyone is a farmer. There are other people who are bankers. There are other people who are the tech geniuses. There are other people who are essentially just ordinary workers who are in the system, but then they have very little money to spare in terms of investments. We need to gather ourselves in smaller or larger groups called cooperatives or whatever you want to call it, and then direct or channel investment in that direction. That's another way of giving security to financial institutions like banks, because the way they operate cannot be changed. And we must now try and find ways to say, match our economic situations, match our physical situations, and then how do we make sure that these institutions work in our favor, and how do we then get government to support small scale farmers and commercial farmers in the same vein? I think that will be something that we'll have to do, because if we look at it right now, as a small scale farmer, I don't actually believe that there are programs that support small scale farmers. Their requirements are huge and they're designed for commercial farmers. And because of the objectives of those programs, they are designed to deal with supplying the GMB or supplying tobacco floors and so forth. And because of their size, you end up not being able to partake in that pie, and then it suddenly feels unfair. So maybe more information being feedbacked to people that design programs around farming is that we haven't actually left the subsistence farming era with the mass population that we have. How do we capture subsistence farming into contributing largely into commercial farming without having to have big and vast amounts of lands of 1,000 hectares? How do I make sure that I turn 10 hectares of land by myself and including every other farmer in my area to turn into a 1,000 hectare farm? And then how do we all develop, or how do we all benefit largely from that collective? I think that's very important. Even our diaspora, if they try and find ways to invest into agriculture through those schemes, we'll find that we'll have more programs that support more people in volume terms versus a lot of programs that support a few people just because of their requirements and objectives.
All right, interesting. I would say speaking from a realist point of view, not from an idealist point of view, because I think a lot of times what we've seen on the streets is that people tend to be very idealistic about the way they want to do the things. But you are speaking from a knowledge-based approach. And thank you for that, Noma. I'll come to you, John. You're a commercial farmer. And one of the things as well that came out from my research on the challenges that the youth are facing was the markets themselves. How does one, right? You are a farmer. You've got your produce, you've got your maize, you've got your beans, and Noma is doing whatever she's doing. But the markets themselves, we've got a flooded market. Like Noma was saying that not everyone can be a farmer, but now we've seen a surge in the number of people who are farming, be it young, be it old. But so now there's competition for markets. How can youth now market themselves? How can they be at the top of the chain and say, guys, I'm here. This is my produce. This is me, John. I've got my soybeans. You can rely on me.
Thank you very much. The first thing that we need to look at is consider farming or agriculture as a business, because there's no way you can produce a certain product before you survey your market. So the challenge with the most young farmers is a lot of people can see me holding cabbages, and then they start doing cabbages. Yet I'm based in the Midlands. And in the Midlands, there are less farmers that, because of the rainfall patterns, there are less farmers that are mostly into horticulture. So I'll be targeting the Midlands, Blawa, North, South. And then someone in around Aradamai Central tried to do the same. I have a friend of mine who said he had about 30,000 cabbages because Angasina market. He was looking at the same time when cabbages were $4.20, $4.15. So he was saying the cost of bringing the cabbages to the market the cost to wipe away the profit that you'll be getting. So as young people, I'm encouraging us to let's try to survey or do the market study before we produce our produce in the market. Let's say, for example, you can't do a bulky hectarage of garlic before you identify where you want to sell the garlic. Obviously, or also let's try to add value on our produce. For example, onions. Let's try to dry them. Obviously, by the time you put my onions are not flat, then by the time you are not share market. So let's try to add value a little bit on our produce. I think we are trying to work around each to do value addition on most of our produce that we are producing as young farmers. For example, cabbages, they can be stored in these jars. So we are trying to come up with that and also try to dry. There's a certain time at my farm where I did cabbages and they flooded. Then I ended up drying them. And then I saw that there's a good market of mufushwa, a dried market. As far as people from UK, they were asking for the same commodities. Even in Zimbabwe, even in Mbare, I saw that I can get a lot of money from drying. So as young people, let's try to do market research and also try to have component of value addition just a bit. It's not expensive kuomesa cabbage. You just put it with some vura with some moto, you start repacking. Let it be natural. So I think as young people, let's try to work on that.
Okay, you're talking about market survey. Okay, Noma, yes, please come in.
I strongly agree with John, especially on value addition. I think when we look at agriculture, let's not only look at the part where you produce from seed to the fruit and then try and take it to market. For instance, we're coming out of winter where the crop that was very popular was onions. For the next, we're about to phase out, but then for the next 5 to 6 weeks, we're going to see fresh onions, bulky and many in the market because everyone's trying to push them out. We still don't have as many engineers that we have had graduate. We still don't have people creating machines, using good day-old sunlight for free. Machines for us to be able to dry onions and be able to store them. And in the time when we head for December, we're going to be really seeing a shortage of onions, and we're going to see a lot of importing from South Africa into the rest of Africa. There shouldn't be a reason why, after a bumper harvest of onions, I can tell you from just small scale farmers right now that if you're to ask me if I can give you 13,000 tons of onion, I know where to go and find it because of my farmers network. But then all of them are holding it fresh. How do we make sure that this is dried, well stored, and ready for even factory movement, move to onion powder, move to other parts of value addition? And you don't have to always be the farmer. You have to just be the person that moves product onion into a better product that is sold in the market. If we all do that, we'll find that agribusiness becomes vast and wide and enough space for all of us to be in it. So engineers, help us with the machinery. No one is going to create it for us. And the more we try and wait for China to do it for us, the less we actually benefit for ourselves. So those are some of the things that we need to look at as the youth, to say, you're not necessarily a farmer, so don't know timba kumunda, but then the agribusiness value chain, is very huge. There is enough space for all of us to occupy and execute using whatever knowledge that you got from school. Because I think that's the biggest struggle that we're having. No one would ever believe that I'm a mathematics graduate. You know what I mean? Like you have to think about, okay, why did I move from that space? How much of my mathematics do I use in my field? It will be unbelievable for you to come and see that I actually do use some of that implementation. So I think it's about also getting into those groups and then saying, this is my skill set, this is how I want to contribute to it, and we'll find much more space before we start talking about trying to export, trying to sell. I know that there's so many people who are going hungry and there's need for food. Just let's produce for ourselves because we can start thinking about producing for other people.
All right, interesting. I can safely say I hit a jackpot today by inviting you guys to this program. You're adding much value to this program, and I hope someone is going to benefit from this. If people are watching, and you've got contributions, please feel free to send them through our Facebook channel, and we'll read them out and we'll post them out to the two guests that I have today. And then one thing that we cannot ignore both Noma and John is that there's climate change, and Zimbabwe in the past 2, 3, 5 years has been hit by severe drought. How are you managing to mitigate the challenges that are posed by climate change and these severe droughts? I'll start with you, Noma.
Okay, so we've moved our farm essentially to drip irrigation, and I think that it's very important for us to know that water conservation is something that's very important. In the last 5 years, we have experienced hectic droughts to a point where even cities don't have access to water. But this next coming, I think 3 to 5 years, we've been projected with a lot of water. It's our responsibility as farmers and generally as people. I think that's also some of the reasons why Fumvudza, the program, has been there to say, how do we make sure that we also get water collection back into the water table, but not only into the water table. Let's find ways to harvest the rainwater and be able to then use it for continuous farming purposes, because we can't deny the fact that there's climate change. We've had countries like the Netherlands, countries like Israel, a whole desert. It produces more food than we do, and we have more dams per capita than any other African country on the continent. So we have very little excuses on how we're going to deal with climate change. I think the most important part is, how do we break down the information around climate change instead of using the term climate change like we're all learned? Half the people that are farming are not mostly schooled. How do we make sure that we break it down to understandable terms and also practical steps of how do you deal with climate change? How do you preserve your soil integrity? How do you make sure that you have enough water for you to continue producing in the next coming years?
All right.
So for us, it's been drip irrigation.
And it's paying off for you.
Yes, actually it is, because we don't have we haven't experienced many water losses. I mean, if you use overhead irrigation, for instance, you end up watering spaces that don't produce any food for you, and you then now need chemicals to deal with weeds, because weeds don't respect any other laws of whatever farming procedures you have. So specifically drip irrigation has taught us that you only focused on producing and watering the space where it's going to give you more food. And I think if we start looking at it even in terms of high grain, even maize in Asia and some places in Israel is grown under drip irrigation. So let's think about those methods. Again, people who are in engineering, this is your chance to make sure that we have enough product. We actually have enough raw materials for us to be able to produce our own drip materials. We shouldn't be importing drip lines from China or from wherever. We need those people to actually bring us cheaper solutions. It may not last a long time, but if it's cheaper, then it means that we're going to be able to continue the cycle in our agribusinesses.
All right, fine. John, I'll pose the same question to you. You're from the Midlands, and I think it's one of the most stable when it comes to climate. It's actually a very good region for farming. Please tell us how you've been managing to mitigate the effects of climate change, and probably some of your words of encouragement to the youth out there who might want to venture into agriculture, but they're thinking, what about climate change?
Thanks very much. I think the climate change is highly affected agriculture in the past years in terms of the rainfall patterns that we are receiving. For example, in last year, we only received rains twice during the course of the period. I think we received 80 mils in November and then about 15 somewhere there in December, and that was that for the whole year. So all the crops that we were having, it was through irrigation. And if you compare now in terms of the cost of fuel these days, which is now slightly higher on the farmer side, it will be expensive if we are irrigating throughout the season. So, but the first thing that I encourage young people to do, or other farmers in Zimbabwe, or even throughout the world, is let's try to invest in irrigation, which is very conservative. Like, for example, what my sister said, that is drip irrigation. It saves water because you only irrigating direct on the crop rather than spreading the water where it's not needed. And also, as farmers, let's try to do water harvest. Let's try to build some few streams. Try to have tanks where we can harvest our waters from the roofs and anywhere, so at least we have enough water to irrigate wherever there's a space within the when there's a gap of rainfall within our farming season. And also, as farmers, let's try to use my early rains rather than to wait later. But sometimes we save water for the winter season where there's no rain. If we plant our crops on time rather than kumirira mvura yekupedzisira. But let's try to engage kuti mvura ichangonaya. For now, let's do our land preparation. Painodzoka mvura in 2 weeks time. Let's try to plant mvura so at least we save water there through my dam. I think last week I passed through Mazoe Dam. It's very sad. I'm not seeing mvura dam. There's no water, and there are a lot of farmers. They are obviously they're draining water from the dam. So as farmers, let's try to utilize the natural rains so that we save mvura dam for the future user and also for winter crops.
All right. What you're talking about, the issue here, kuti ngati remain at the early rains. Recently, the Meteorological Service Department said that farmers should not rush to go into farming because of the rains that we received in the last week or so. They're saying that this could be fertile as we go forward. And you are coming from a farmer's perspective, you're saying the opposite. So how do we balance between what we have from the MSD and what we have on the ground from you as a farmer?
No, I'm saying let's try to use the early rains because this rains was for land preparation. Okay. I also posted on my Facebook, guys, let's not plant with this rain. Let's do land prep so that when we receive rains, usually maybe by mid-November, our land is now ready. Because by the time we receive rainfall in November, a lot of people will start preparing land. But that will be the time for planting now. So this rain that I receive for now, let's do our land preparation. But for those with irrigation, they can plant because they have got supplementary rain, which is readily available in the case of a dry spell. All
right. There's a question that came through on our Facebook, and it says, would you say the lack of updated market data is a missing ingredient in the farming sector in Zimbabwe? I will take the question again. Would you say that the lack of updated market data is a missing ingredient in the farming sector in Zimbabwe? Maybe Noma, you can come through on this one.
I think there are people like Musika, for instance. If you follow them on Twitter, they've invested a lot of time into gathering data around market trends and how they are moving. It's not the lack of data, it's the lack of processing data into information that is usable by farmers, such that it's useful information. Because if you want data, it's readily available on many platforms. But the problem with data is that it's unprocessed. It doesn't help you make any decisions. It's just available for you to see. So I think what we lack is using the data correctly and processing it into information that is valuable to farmers and valuable even to people who want to play in other sectors or along the value chain. That's what's missing, very importantly.
Okay, John, what do you say about this?
Yeah, I agree with what Noma said. But I think also as farmers, let's try to utilize the organizations that are there for marketing. For example, you've got AMA, which is there. I think they're doing well in terms of marketing the produce for the farmers. So as farmers, let's try to get into groups like what Noma said, and also visit other agriculture departments. Some of them they've got good market linkages for the produce that we are doing.
All right. Interesting. There's also one thing that you guys both talked about, and it's an ongoing conversation. It's something that has been talked about by the government, especially the president is talking about it. We're talking about Pfumvudza. Is this a step in the right direction, considering where we are as a nation? Noma, I will start with you, Noma.
I mean, Pfumvudza has always been there. I think there's a Farming God's Way program that was always being done. I think it's a step in the right direction that the government has amplified the voice of such organizations around Pfumvudza. And the focus around it is to make sure that you don't spend a lot of time tilling the land, but you focus on just the plant and making sure that you get higher yields. Over the time, it has shown that, yes, it doesn't have great yields like use of synthetic fertilizers, but then what it does is that it does ensure that there is some sort of food security. And we have been in a very tricky position in terms of food security as a country. And I think it's a step in the right direction for us to be looking into that. And if you're a subsistence farmer, especially, that should be something that you're looking into in terms of just securing your family's needs and your family's ability to eat. And the more of us produce that, then we can start moving into spaces where AMA, for instance, the GMB, then can now gather a lot of this grain and put it into good use, and then you get your money's worth to also access other things that aren't necessarily grain.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. There's another question as well that came through our Facebook. He says, are there any platforms or someone to help so that we as youth get land for agricultural activities? Need one and very passionate and, okay, I can't get this, about farming. I think information about farming. So are there any platforms or someone to help so that we can get land for agricultural activities as youth? Maybe I'll come to you, John.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Lovejoy. Like I said before, that land is available, but it's not available for ownership. It's available for production. So as young people, if that things in our mind, that if I want land, land weekend or rural land to produce, land for production is available. I've seen a lot of farmers that are signing joint partnerships, joint ventures with a lot of people on the land that they don't have capacity to use for now, or they want to expand their operation. So as young people, they can visit their agriculture officers, and they can also liaise with us, Apex Council. We've got some farmers, but on the land, my partners. That could, guys, do we have any young people that are vibrant that I can partner with, so that we can effectively produce on this farm? So the farms for production is there for now. It's readily available for people that are hunger or that have a drive to produce. But for those ones that they want to offer letters, number 99 list, I advise them to get my forms from the agriculture officers. My forms are on the waiting list. But what we do as Apex Council, we are pushing and advocating to the government to make sure that they avail land for young people. Especially, we are targeting those people that are listing land. Like, for example, Noma, where she was saying, I'm listing a land. She's on our top priority. The moment I call the minister or I engage the president around availing land to the youth, definitely list and where these young people are listing. Look here, our president. I have got Noma, I have got John, I have got Lovejoy. These young people are listing farms from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They are producing these tons per year. Can you kindly avail my farms out so that they're no longer paying my rentals, my land owners? And then the money that they're paying rentals, it will be channeled to the production.
I think we do need strong institutions, right? I've heard about the Apex Council. I'm actually very excited the fact that I'm actually on a panel with you, John. I think the institution in itself must avail itself to its customer base, or the youth that you were talking about is mostly found on the internet. How do we help each other make sure that the information around the Apex Council, the farmers' unions that are there, is readily available on the devices that the youth are found on? Because to say that you can find it on the newspaper, guys, I don't know when was the last time I held ink and paper. It's these short conversations. It's these short conversations that we're having now, and they are so short that they leave people curious. But then because you don't know what is the next step to go to, you then end up giving up. And then the next time a conversation like this happens, it's like, but then these guys are all talk and nothing is happening. I would like to challenge people like me. I'll come to you, John, and say, okay, how do we work together to make sure that organizations like the Apex Council are found online, for us to be able to say, disseminate this type of information, so that it's not only about, it's going to the president, it's going to the minister, but is the institution strong enough to influence how policy is going to be designed for us later? Because we are only seen and heard by the way we are organized. If we're disorganized as the youth, being heard and seen is more difficult. And I think the only reason why we're disorganized is because we don't know where to find this information. So it takes like Nomaliso to go and say, Saka, ZFU, my office is Arikupi, and it's such it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that.
Okay. Nomaliso, as you're speaking, someone, Blessing Chinanga, he said, how can we link up with Apex Council? What are their details, websites? So, John, here is your opportunity to let the nation know how can young people or even farmers, older farmers, get in touch with you so that at least you make the way forward with them.
Thanks very much. As Apex Council, we have got what we call provincial ambassadors. So in each and every province, we have got people that represents the Apex Council in the province and also take the issues of the farmers from the relevant districts. So what we simply do, we've got a Facebook page which we have, and recently we're designing our website. I'm sure in the next 1 week or so will be up on the website, and then we'll put the contacts for our regional or our provincial ambassadors, so that each and every person in this particular province will get assistance, because provinces they differ. Provinces like Harare, obviously we are working around Valley Edition because there's no much land. But if you go in other provinces, Mash West, there's a lot of land. So the problems for young people in each province, they differ. That's why Takai Sama provincial ambassadors, to make sure that all these issues are handled in a manner in which they are being reported or are being availed by young people. So we have got a provincial ambassador, we have got the Facebook page, which is very active. And we also work together with the Minister of Youth, Minister of Agriculture, Youth Desk. We have also a Facebook page which also run together. So people can follow on those two pages and see what we are doing as young people.
All right. No, that's fine, John. There's another question for you as well from Prince Brian Chizanga. He says, "Hi, Lovejoy. I would like John to explain on the horticulture export initiative that the government is launching for small-scale farmers who are producing on land as small as 2 hectares, and in terms of finance, the AgriBank initiative to launch funding options for farmers in March 2021, as the minister explained at Denenga Field Day last week." That's a question for you from Brian.
Okay, thanks. I think I was there at the Denenga farm where the minister was. That's why I said to the minister, so the issue, what the minister said around the AgriBank, they were also there. I like it when the minister said they are working with the Minister of Finance, I think with other authorities in the government, to make sure that AgriBank becomes a farm bank, so that at least it's fully there for the farmers, and they will consider my offer letter analysis. For some of the banks, they are saying these papers are not bankable. But the government is working to make sure that AgriBank solely represent farmers, and obviously they will accept these offer letters and leases to assist farmers whenever they need my loans. Then on the issue of horticulture, I think the government is still launching it. I was talking to the national coordinator for the youth desk, Mr. Kachingo. He is moving around the country launching all these programs in all the provinces around Zimbabwe. So I advise the person who asked just to visit your district or your province to hear more what the government is doing in your province.
All right, interesting. Noma, I want to come to you. You are operating on a rather small scale space, and from how you're operating, do you think maybe what are the advantages of having your type of mechanism, your type of agricultural or agro-based business that you're doing? How does it drip feed into the economy? Is it that important, or maybe it's something that we can just say, okay, they are doing it for subsistence farming, and just for Noma and the family and probably immediate family?
I mean, we employ about 50 people on the farm, and this is from the farming into the packing and the selection into feeding into the stores that we sell to. I think if you look at agriculture as just simply for subsistence, it remains just that, for subsistence. But then if you look at it as a business, like John said earlier, you start to think about how much of the economy you can add into. And it's not always about changing it using an overhaul process, but it's a trickle effect into how you change the economy. So I think that anyone who is on small scale farming, taking advantage of the programs that are there. For instance, the fund that's going to be availed for small scale farmers. Let's not look for big tractors because they don't help you on a small piece of land. Look for other mechanizations like a hand tiller. It's still got the same effect, but it just works on a smaller piece of land for a cheaper price and for even a much effective method of tilling your land. Use intensive farming methods. I think we have the internet. We are streaming live on the internet. There's so much more information around how to intensively farm and get much more higher yields on smaller plots of land, which is something that I've experienced in the last, I've been in farming for at least a year and a half. It's something that I've experienced in my farming times. From the way that we used to farm and the way that we're farming now, even my farm workers will tell you that we've experienced higher yields because of those methods. So if we follow and we also try and school ourselves, when opportunities avail themselves, we put ourselves in a position to be empowered. And I think something to say, most people who know me know that I am not a pro-ZANU-PF person, but I believe that after elections and everything else has happened, the government's design is supposed to be a government for everyone. And I think when opportunities are availed by government, be it a government that you voted for, you didn't vote for, it's very important for people to participate so that you don't feel like opportunities are only linked for those that are certainly aligned to some groups. It will be something that is very pertinent as we go into the future. We are having a growing population and more mouths to feed, that not everything should be politicized. And if the government puts out certain programs, actively participate, actively contribute. Your participation is what changes the direction of how these programs become effective or ineffective. It's how it changes these programs from being corrupt and not corrupt. But then if you're going to sit by as a young person and say, but you will lose out on the few opportunities that help you be either empowered or not empowered. The few opportunities that can change you from being in dire poverty or not in poverty.
All right, interesting. You actually went ahead and spoke about something that I was going to ask both of you guys. You might have divergent political views, but you've got a common goal that you're working on, and that is putting food on the table. Right, but we cannot ignore the fact that there's been a talk about the politicization of the land, the politicization of loans, the politicization of the mechanization process. It's something that has been ongoing. It's a discussion that has been ongoing for a long time now. Noma, you said your bit. I would want to hear what John would say about this. I would want to hear. You were talking about links to the president, talking to the minister. But there are other young people who do not have that those links that you have. How political is this agricultural sector? How open is it to other guys who are not part and parcel of the ZANU-PF ZANU-PF pot? Yeah, ZANU-PF structures.
Oh, you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay, fine. You know, we have got one president in Zimbabwe, and our president is there for every Zimbabwean. That's the first
one
thing.
you represent.
So, you're saying what?
That you want to represent the Apex Council.
The small P. There's a small P. Okay, there's only one president with a bigger P in the country. That won the elections in 2018. So, and he's there to represent the interests of all the Zimbabweans. He runs the resources. He oversees the resources for the whole country. So land is one of the state resources where our president, Comrade Emmerson Mnangagwa, is the president. So he resides on that land. So the land is for every Zimbabwean, regardless of your political affiliation or your links to anyone. But the challenge that we have with a lot of people is whenever the government bankrolled a program, they think that it's meant for ZANU-PF. But if you check, we have got 3 critical ministries that are being run by technocrats, not people from the party. We have got the Minister of Youth in a Dr. Kest Coventry. We have got the Minister of Finance in a Professor Mchuli. We have got the Minister of Agriculture now, Dr. Masuka. Dr. Masuka is a technocrat. He is not an MP for ZANU-PF. Kest is not an MP for ZANU-PF, he's a technocrat. Professor Mtuli is not an MP for ZANU-PF, he's a technocrat. So you can actually see that the president is moving from the behavior or the thinking that the resources Aruma ministries belong to the party. Because if you engage Dr. Keskov and Youth Wezan or MDC, I'm not a politician. I'm here to serve the interest of every Zimbabwean, which is the right step in terms of development. That we need to depoliticize development to make sure that we get the results. So in terms of politics in the land, I can actually safely say that we have a lot of people varum MDC vanemint honorable wende for the farm vachamisa vane farm vabiti vane farm. If these farms were for ZANU-PF, we have got a lot of young people in the party in ZANU-PF that every day they are calling looking for the land. So if the land was there for politics, we're supposed to have written withdrawal letters to BT, Wende, and Machamisa to take the land back and give it to ZANU-PF youth. So you can actually see that land purely is for every Zimbabwean. And every Zimbabwean have got a right to get that land, to get the loan from the bank, to get the implements from the bank. But what we also need to do, for you to get those, we need to respect the powers in power. You know, we have the people that says our president is not the president. So there's no way you can then go to his appointee ministry and expect to get an offer letter. No, you won't get it.
No, second, 2.5 years on waiting list. But I mean, I'm strongly an advocate of strong institutions, right?
Okay.
Because we then depoliticize some of these things. If our institutions are strong enough, then we stop. It stops being about, is it about the president or is it about the development, right? And also participation. I am going to reiterate this more than enough times, that if we don't participate in these spaces, that's how we lose out, right? That's how it comes. Vano recognize that the big P then become part of those, but then there's also because there's participation, right? So if we participate, and also if your participation helps in building the stronger institutions that I'm talking about, that it shouldn't be difficult for any youth who has participated to access the resources that are there for the land, right? But then if you don't participate, then you don't know. But it's also very important for people like you, John, who are in important realms of institutions like the Apex Council, to know how to disseminate information in a space to more people, because people are inherently corrupt. Kana chinchika uya ku farmers union kweduka tiri 10 12 tiri kumsoroko tokona utoti tiri split tiri 12 and then be quiet about it. But then we now need to also be people that know how to disseminate information. The more information trickles down, the more people are able to hold each other accountable, and the stronger our institutions become. So I think that's something that's going to be a challenge for every youth, that if you are so interested in farming, find these institutions. And I think that I'm going to also spend more time on the internet exposing that this is an institution and what is it used for? How do you get in touch? How do you join? And when you join, how do you participate and make sure that you are also counted? Because when you are counted, you then contributing to the strength of the institution.
Interesting point that you're putting across, guys. And unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I've got one last question from Mourinho Frankton. It's on Facebook, and he says, I've been applying for farming land since 2020, and I don't have it until now. My question is, as a young Zimbabwean, which youth, to be precise, do qualify to be given land, and which channel did they follow? I've been renting from other people and done well in the past. So this is a youth who's been doing well. He says he's been doing well in as far as farming is concerned, but he needs his own piece of land. And John, I'm sure you talked about it. Maybe you joined us a little bit later. Maybe you can just, in brief, let us know the channels that are there to be followed, and how your organization is also helping such youths. Okay,
thank you very much. But before I respond to that one, let me also add that when we were forming the Apex Council for Youth in Agriculture, we made a call to all the youth in different political parties. I'm happy that ZANU-PF was represented and MDC was represented, and this platform, Mr. Muchenje, was represented, and POV was represented. There are a lot of political parties which were represented by their young people when we formed this Apex Council, because we wanted for everyone to be involved, because we know that each and every youth belongs to a certain political party. So we reach out to all those political parties to get their views from them. Then let me answer that one issue here, Lent. I think I've been communicating with this friend of mine, Mr. Mirinho, around that. So maybe we need to know which province Yavanova, so at least we can direct to our provincial ambassador, and then you can assist. Because currently we are working with the state ministers, and we are pushing to make sure that our young people are getting land. I'm happy that we managed to strike in Mashi West, where we were the meeting with the state minister and the deputy minister for agriculture. He was also there. So we said our issues, and then they said, but our issue was the priority must be given to young people who are leasing land. We have the track records for production, but the ministry has been on point that they are not going to dish out land on any political stance or to anyone. They are going to look at the capacity. So the people that we know that they've got capacity are the people that are already doing farming and are producing on the leased land. And these are the young people that are going to be on the priority. And we are going to push and advocate to make sure that by the end of this year, we have got at least names that we can publish for the young people that were leasing land before and they were producing. They are now a proud offer letter holders for the farms.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Okay,
interesting.
As a person who's on the waiting list, I can tell the person who was giving a question to say, firstly, identify which district, so the province that he is saying, yes, identify the province that you are in, and then go to your district offices. They actually have the places where you can apply. That's where you start the process, to go to the district office, to the place where you want the land, and then apply and say, this is the size of the land that I want to do. These are the type of activities that I want to do. So sometimes you may want to be farming large amounts of maize. You may not get it in Goromonzi areas. You will have to go get it in Mount Hampden or even in other provinces. But then if you start at district level, you are able to then be allocated as to what type of activity you are doing. It's also very important for people who are leasing land that have your agricultural record in place. It's one thing to say I'm renting land, but you can produce my records farming. Records for farmers are usually in shambles. Have those records in place so that you can also use them to that application process. But then the start is which province you are in, go to a district office, you'll be given a form there, you will apply, and then you'll join the waiting list. I can't promise or tell people how long the waiting list is. I've been on one for 2 years, but that is the process that I know, that is the process that I've heard of. Now it's about when you are now on the waiting list, there's more voices to say, how do we make the system efficient for the distribution? The first step for procedure. If we first do the first steps of procedure, then we can start crying, but you know, we have been here for 2 years, I haven't gotten anything, then it starts being different. Okay. But that's the truth.
No, the challenge that we have is some people want to try. So loan application. So let's try to be involved in the processes. Because let's follow the process. I'm happy with what you said. Thank you very much, Monez.
All right, Noma, do you think one day you'll be your application will be approved? Do you believe in this?
I think so. I've been pushing. I think so. Yeah. One day it will be approved. I mean, I'm happy with where I'm leasing at the moment. I'm not trying to be greedy, but if I get another lease, that would be great. Then, which means I open up space for somebody else to lease from a private owner. I'm happy with that.
All right. Because of time, I'll just give you guys just a minute to maybe say your parting shots to aspiring youths who want to venture into agriculture, who want to be award winners, who also want to run a successful business like you, Noma. I'll start with you, John.
My parting words is to all the young farmers in Zimbabwe who are looking for land and who are also interested in farming. Guys, let's participate in the government, in the programs that are being availed by the government through the Ministry of Youth, through the Ministry of Agriculture, the Youth Desk. Let's participate. Let's not politicize everything. But the moment you politicize, you develop a negative attitude, and then you don't participate. Then some people will be benefiting. So let's participate. This is our country. The president is there for us all. Our president, Emerson Mnangagwa, is there for us all, and Zimbabwe is for us all. Let's see. There are a lot of presidents. That's why I emphasize. So let's participate. He is there for us.
Okay, interesting. Thank you so much, John. Noma?
Mine also is participate, but participate so that we can build strong institutions. Our nation, more than anything, requires strong institutions, and strong institutions are built by people who are actively participating and who have an objective that is very clear. That what we want is so that we don't have our children dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with now. But more than that, our empowerment comes from us using the little that we have. If we all contributed $1 and there's a million of us, it means that we have $1 million to channel into a certain industry. But then if we always try and look for 1 million equity, it will just benefit Nomaliso and her family. We will be unable to develop ourselves. So let's group ourselves always, find the spaces and the organizations. Like I said, for many organizations, I'm challenging the Apex Council. I know there are many other farmers union. There's a Young Farmers Union. There's a ZFU. Try by all means to make sure that the information that you have trickles to the youth using the devices that they are found on nowadays. This is the way we then create and how we gather and pull in resources by sharing the information. Pulled resources help us create industries. We're not going to get any resources from any FDI. We're not going to get it from only just government programs. They are going to come from us pulling little resources that we have together to produce something that is bigger for us.
All right, interesting. And lastly, I know I said lastly the other time, but I'll give you guys an opportunity to market your companies right now. This is a free service that I'm offering you. Ordinarily, you'd have to pay for this, but utilize the next 30 seconds. How do people get in touch with you, and what kind of opportunities can you offer them as well, Norma?
For if you want to send love to your family, if you're in the diaspora or you're local and you have so much, you have no time to do shopping or to get your fresh fruit and veg, go to www.freshinabox.co.zw and order anything that you want. We deliver to your homes every day from Monday to Friday, and we accept all forms of payment. So you are very much secure with whatever currency you want to use.
All right, interesting, John.
Thanks. So Noma, I'll definitely do that. I need some things from you. Mine is we have put up as the national chairperson of the Apex Council. We are on Facebook. So I think it's Apex Council for Youth in Agriculture in Zimbabwe. Let's also follow the page and also hear what you are saying. And also we put youth, the Minister of Agriculture, the youth desk, which is also a page that we're also running together. So I think as farmers, let's follow. There are good programs that we have posted there on daily basis. Let's follow and let's interact as young people. Thank you.
All right. On our part is 26 Richard. We also have a farming group. We've posted the link on our Facebook. For those who are interested in farming, please join the link, and you can hear or you can get as much information about farming as possible. Now that leaves me to thank my two guests. Thank you so much for coming to the program. I know you guys are busy. You're probably running your business, and John had said that he is a meeting, and I'm sorry for delaying this, but well, it was for the greatest good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, Lovejoy.
Okay, the program was Meet the Press with me, Lovejoy Mtongwiza. If you've got your story and you want it to be told on our platforms, please get in touch with me, Lovejoy Mtongwiza, on my Facebook page, Lovejoy LJ Mtongwiza. On Twitter, it's at LJMat. And then you can also get in touch with Richard on our social media platforms. On Facebook, it's 26 Richard. Twitter, it's at 26 Richard. And we promise we'll respond to your DMs. We'll respond to every message that you send to us. Now, that leaves me to thank everybody who has been tuning in. Please keep on tuning to other programs in the future. My name is Lovejoy Mtongwiza. The program was Meet the Press with Lovejoy. See you next time.